we will do a short discussion, our introduction, and then we'll recap on what entrepreneurial skills are. I'm assuming that you have already done that on your, when you did the e-platform session. So I'm assuming that that's all being covered, and that you should be able to tell me who, you know, what entrepreneurial skills are, who an entrepreneur is, and what entrepreneurial skills are. Then I'll ask you to identify 2 entrepreneurial skills which you think you would need as an individual to do the work that you do. And then we might look at some additional entrepreneurial skills which I think African leaders must have. And then you can tell me as well what you think they should have. As part of the session, I'm also going to focus on certain soft skills which entrepreneurs should have. One of them will be critical thinking, and the other one would be on time management. We'll have a little game on entrepreneurial skills, and then I will introduce you to the world of psychometrics, in which we will then take the time to measure what your time management skills at the moment are, or is like at the moment. And then we will, if we have more time, we will look at leadership pledge. We'll make our own leadership pledge as we have done in the past. And then if you have any questions and answers, you can ask me as well. So let us start. Let us start with, who can tell me what an entrepreneur is? Who is an entrepreneur? Anything about entrepreneurship? Please go, Grace, go for it. Your hands are up, Grace, go for it, yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So this is Grace Ann from Ghana. So I think an entrepreneur is someone who someone who identifies a problem or an issue and is also able to come up with a solution to that problem or issue.
Great. Anybody else? So somebody who identifies problems and comes up with an answer or solution, Grace says, is an entrepreneur. Anybody else? Deborah?
Yeah, in addition to what Grace said, I'm Deborah from Nigeria.
Deborah.
In addition to the definition Grace gave, also the person earns a living from solving the problem he or she discovers in the environment. The person earns a living from providing solution to the problem.
Brilliant. So it's not just about providing the solution, but making a living and in a lifetime out of it. Fantastic. Susan, you have your hand up. Sorry, Success.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what the 2 speakers have also said. So aside finding the solution and making money out of the solution, the entrepreneur brings other people on board to also create jobs for other people to also make a living out of the solution.
I like your trend of thinking, all of you so far. So we're starting with identifying a problem, then we move on to finding the solution, and then we move on to making a living out of the solution, and then we move on to employing others to help to solve the problem. Fantastic. It's a beautiful thread that you have just woven on entrepreneurs. Fantastic. Okay, any others? Susan, your hand is still up. I suspect it's an old hand. Any others? Any others? There are about 20 more of you online. Any others? The thing about entrepreneurship, about leadership, and I like, you know, the title of this or the program is titled Young African Leadership Initiative. So the L there on leadership means that you are all leaders. I mean, you were selected for that particular reason because you were leaders. So I don't expect a lot of cajoling from you, right? Leaders should be able to immediately speak their mind. If you ask a question, you should be able to have an answer for it as a leader, you know. So I don't want us to waste time, you know, for me looking through and calling people. If you're a leader, then you already should be online and active. You don't log in and then go on to do other things. That's not what this is about, right? So I don't expect you to be engaged in other things when you're supposed to be fully engaged here. After all, it was your choosing to be here. So if you've chosen to be here, then at least let's add the dedication to it as a leader. Okay, Kortu, is your first name is Jala? I think, yes, Jala. Go for it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add on to the definition of entrepreneur. What I wanted to add is that entrepreneur is somebody who is able to take risks.
Okay, all right. So now let's put the thread together again. So somebody who identifies a problem, somebody who solves the problem, somebody who, let me now try and fit, okay, somebody who then makes a living out of the problem, somebody who then we put takes risks, and then we now add the other one, the third one, which has now become the fourth one, someone who makes employment or creates employment for other people. Fantastic. This is a great start. And I hope that, you know, we would say that in this class or in this session, we have been able to define what entrepreneurship is. Great start. Okay, so we're looking at what skills an entrepreneur should have, right? And whatever you have here, whatever you can see on the board, it's not exhaustive enough, right? It's just one of the many that entrepreneurs should have. So look on the left-hand side, which says successful entrepreneurs characteristics, right? Can you, there are quite a number of them. Is anybody bold enough to just have a look and tell me, choose one and tell me what you think about it, or why you think that it is important for an entrepreneur to have it? Anybody, just choose one, the ones that on the left one with the guy and the lady. All of the characteristics there you can see. Just select one and, you know, talk about it a bit.
Okay, can I go first?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll take good management skills.
Is this Susan
and
again?
I think
hold on,
this is success.
Success, okay, from, oh, so I keep saying Susan, sorry.
It's fine. Yeah, so good management skills, because if you're developing a concept and you want it to be sustained, you should be able to manage it. Otherwise, everything will come down collapsing.
Fantastic. So good management. John, you have your hand up.
Okay, so I would also take open-minded.
Open-minded.
I mean, an entrepreneur should be someone who is open-minded, and when he is approached with any issue, his ability to be open-minded would help him explore possible causes, and not necessarily because of the few ideas or knowledge that the person have about that problem. I mean, the person goes in that way. In that case, the person becomes skilled in solving problems. But when you have the ability to tackle issues, like you are a learner, you are able to learn and discover patterns in there that can help you solve that problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy from Nigeria. Okay, so I would say knowledgeable.
Okay.
It's important for the entrepreneur to be knowledgeable about the domain they are trying to solve the problem for. To be knowledgeable about the customer base, their users, their target markets, everything about the domain, so that you can be able to know what exactly is the problem you want to solve, and how is this problem going to help your customers.
Okay.
Or the solution going to help your customers. Thank you.
So Joy, I'm going to ask you a trick question. On a scale of 10, 10 being the highest, how knowledgeable would you say you are in the domain in which you are an entrepreneur? And which domain is that?
Okay, I would say I'm an EdTech. I'm in the EdTech domain, educational technology. I would say a 7, because I try to keep up with the trends in EdTech. I try to keep up with the customer, the areas where more people are having issues, or what issues they are having. I also try to keep up with the schools and the students that we are basically solving the problems for. Yeah.
And let's not forget, Joy, this is you obviously grading yourself, right? So maybe if somebody else were grading you, you might get a lower or higher mark. So it's important I'm glad also that you didn't grade yourself maybe like 9. So there's always room for improvement to do more of what you're already doing. All right. Osho.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
So I would like to talk about being a risk taker. As an entrepreneur, you have to, you get to a point where you take risk. And so far I've learned that in my business as an entrepreneur, that I have to keep my fears aside. You know, we are always scared of taking risk because we do not know what the future holds. We are scared of the unknown, as we always say. But I realized that the more I take a risk, I love to take a bigger one after it as an entrepreneur. And I think it is one of the characteristics that qualifies one as a successful entrepreneur, being able to take risk for the company and on behalf of the staff.
All right. So thank you for that. Those of you whose hands are up, kindly keep your hands up because we're moving on to the right side. So I'll get you to answer some of the questions from the right side. So keep those hands up, please. So on the right side, you would find 3 circles, right? There's one which talks about the entrepreneurship skills. The other one talks about the technical skills, and then the other one talks about the management skills, okay? So let's start with the technical skills. Technical skills are typically your technical experience and is what gets you, for example, if you are applying for a job, that's the thing that gets you in the door, right? So it would have to do with your certificates and, you know, show of experience and, you know, tell what you can do, the story around what you can do, what you've learned, right? Your tacit knowledge that you have, okay? So in terms of the skills that you need for tacit knowledge, and, you know, it's about operations, communications, research and development, so and so. Then if you come to the entrepreneurial skills or entrepreneurship skills, which is the U, a lot of it has to do with your ability or your traits, right? So in there somewhere, you would find things like inner discipline, okay? And if I were to ask you how many of you, you know, how you would rate yourself in terms of discipline, I'm sure a lot of you would say you would score yourself very high. But again, for me, things like that would show if I were to rate you, I would be looking at, so who was here in the first 5 minutes? Because you've already known for a long time that you're supposed to be in the session. So how disciplined are you to be able to do this program? And particularly, of course, because I've only just met you, I would be viewing it from this angle. Things like your ability to take risk, which Osho, I think, has just mentioned. Being innovative, we'll come to that at some point. And then somebody who is change-oriented, okay? So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. Now we will talk about other things, including being a critical thinker, which we will talk about today. And for me, what is more important, one of the main things that I'm really interested in is time management. As time goes on, we will also talk about things like ethics. I believe that you've been introduced to that. So we will have a conversation about that. Then when you come to management skills, right? Which is actually as it were, the way, so as I said, entrepreneurial skills are more like your traits, as you can see. Then the management skills are the things that it's almost like the real operations, the things that you do in terms of like your planning, decision-making, motivation, marketing, and that kind of thing. Those are the things that you actually do on a daily basis. Okay, so for those of you whose hands were up, let me go to, hold on one second. Fantastic. Okay, so which two for you, some of what we've talked about, right? If you, let me go back to this page. Look here, right? All of the things that are here, you've got all that is on the left and then all that is on the right. Add all of them, okay? Especially the one on the right on entrepreneurial skills, and then all of the ones you have on the left, successful entrepreneurs, the characteristics of them. So I'm coming back to you guys. If you were in your domain or your area of work, okay, in your industry, which two entrepreneurial skills would you say that you would like to acquire now you don't have? Well, maybe you have, for those of you who have, but you'd like to improve, okay, that's one, or that you think I need to acquire. So I'm going to put, so that's the question. Which two, don't forget the question, which two entrepreneurial skills would you like to acquire and why? And then I'm taking you right back to this page again. Fantastic. So let's start with you, Yapo, Adepo Yapo.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Madam. In terms of which, okay, I'm thinking probably the inner discipline. And that I would like not to acquire, but to improve on.
Fantastic.
And I would say something about management skill, like, you know, like building a team, building a motivated team, and actually, use the right type of management to motivate them to achieve the goal that I want to reach. Yeah. Okay. So those, yeah.
Jal, I'm going to skip you just now because you've had an opportunity to speak, but don't lower your hand. Keep it there. I'll come back to you. Bello, I see you next on my screen.
Good afternoon. My name is Bello from Nigeria. Yeah, the skills I will be willing to learn more is under research and development, because I happen to be working under the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. But the department I was in, currently I work with the blending department for lubricants. And there's a lot that entails in that department that you need to acquire in order for you to be able to keep relevant in the sector.
Okay.
So research and development is a very critical area that you just need to keep learning about the technical implications of that department.
Right.
So
and even for us, sorry, go on, yes.
With that, it's easy for you to navigate from different department to other. Yeah.
And even for those of us who may not necessarily be in oil and gas or say in education where research is needed, I think that every entrepreneur ought to have that skill, right? I forget who it was. Was it Joy who was saying, you know, that you're being abreast, right? Being abreast with what's going on in your industry. And that's the kind of thing that we need. And okay, we'll come to that in a bit. In terms of who's news, for me, again, back to what I said, your program is titled Young African Leaders. So I'm interested in the A and the L, African leaders, right? And so whose research, Joy, for example, or Bello, whose research are you going to, are we always taking the West, research from the West, or are we going to create our own narrative? To what extent are we creating our own narrative? So in your industries, right, is it possible to challenge you to start creating your own narrative, a more African narrative that also people can, you know, because oil and gas, the industry, the African industry for oil and gas is very different. Well, I won't say very different, but quite different. There are differences between, you know, the Western industry and then the Ghanaian, the African industry. And there is the need for us to make that distinction by including having a voice, okay? Gabriel, you have the last word in this and then we will move on to the next slide. Gabriel, go for it. Gabriel, are you there? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Go for it.
For me, I think keep up to date because I've realized I'm very bad when it comes to that. So that's one of the skills that I would like to improve on it. And also sometimes due to some kind of frustrations in the environment, my resilient level also becomes issue. Because when sometimes you need something to be done and those who are supposed to help you out or to make the process smooth become too frustrated, and that alone could mostly lower my resilient level. So these are the two qualities that I think I have to improve on it. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, Jala, I haven't forgotten you. Grace, I see you also, your hand is up. Just bear with me for a moment. So, I'm also reading the chat so I can see some of you in a discipline, procrastination. Now, this assignment is for you, all of you, right? So, Sethi, look at it yourself, though, even though you may not have been able to answer it here, look at it yourself and tell me, not tell yourself, how, so even for those who answered the question, a follow-up question would be how, right? So Gabriel, you said, I want to be more resilient. And then the question would be, how are you going to do that? And Bello, you said, I want to research, right? And how are you going to do that? So every one of you should think of what you're gonna, the two that you're interested in, why you are interested in, and now add the question of how am I going to improve that? Is that okay? All right, fantastic. Let's move on to the next. Okay, so when I was looking for a picture of African leaders, right? Funny enough, I couldn't find many. Almost all the ones I saw were these kinds of ones with all these kinds of people on it, right? And so it comes back to what extent are we telling our own story, right? Where I can be able to, I'm not saying that it does not exist, but it's not as easy to find. So I chose this one to make that point. It's not as easy to find as it is to find these ones, where you have Oprah Winfrey and everybody else, and then it's difficult to find one that has, these are two different types that I've put there, one that has more African leaders than they have Western leaders, right? So I have a question for you. Now, this is my thinking that all of these characteristics and skills that we have just discussed, right? Again, the narrative is put out by the people in the West, okay, that says that you need all of these things, right? Question, do you think that the African leader, like you need different set of skills, or are these the same set of skills that we all need globally? Question. Anybody has an answer for me? Otherwise, I can go back to Grace. Let me go back to Grace. Grace and Jala, while we start that, while the rest of them join. Grace, your hand was up already, so do you mind?
My hand was up for the previous question you asked, but I don't know if I should go ahead and respond to the one you just asked.
Yes, please. If you have a thought about that, that would be great.
So for the question you just asked, I think, as an entrepreneur, skills do not differ based on your location. Okay. So every entrepreneur, despite your geographical location, should possess some basic skills.
Okay, so we will have that conversation as we go along. Gabriel, no, before Gabriel, I can see Bakari.
Yes, thank you. But for me, I think we might need different skills, but also we must have to understand our environment first, because most skills have to do with our environment. So if we go and learn skills that have no relationship with our environment, they might not be very useful to our societies. So I believe we have to earn a set of skills that matches our environmental and societal needs. Thank you.
Fantastic. Gabriel, back to you, and then Success.
I think he has said my view.
Okay.
I was sharing the same view with him. Like when we look at differences, like taking Asia market and also to the Western market, most of us, there's a belief that they copy from the Westerns and implement it on their own way. So I think we also have to have our own style, but the knowledge, the basic principle for those knowledge to be accomplished, they have the same general rules. However, we must apply it so that it will suit the African perspective. So that's my view.
Couple more. Alhaji.
Good afternoon. for me, I believe these skills are already there. I mean, whether it's Asia, whether it's Africa, we just need to improve ourselves. We just need to be honest to ourselves. All of the skills are there. The skills are the same. The same skill Bill Gates is using. You can also implement those skills. If you just look at what Bill Gates is doing and you compare to what Dangote is doing, let's say, same skills, time management, like we said, taking calculated risk, like we said, I mean, managing people, being innovative. You know, these are the things. We just need to improve on these skills. These things are the same. That's my opinion.
Okay. Samuel.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. So this is what I think. I think if you look at that in the business space, there are companies that have operated for like 100 years, and things have worked over a period of time. And whether we like it or not, in the Western world, there are a lot of those. And so there are a lot of theories around time management and how to manage resources and all these other skills that it is true, they work. And so let's not discount them. But what we need as African leaders or people within our area is to look at these skills and how we can make them work for us, looking at our cultural context and our environment. I work in a company that's like, we have different operations across different countries. And you realize that there are certain things that the headquarters is trying to push that you clearly, that it just doesn't work for the African context. And so you always have to adapt it to suit what works within our own. In Africa, you might, as a leader, you might actually need more grit than someone who works in the US, because you might face much tougher competition and much tougher situations. So this is what I think.
Thank you, Samuel. Conte, you have the last word, and then I'm going to move on to, I'll share my view with you.
Okay. Good afternoon, all. And for me, I think we should have different skills as Africans, because for the West, they are far ahead of us. And looking at the things we need now as Africans, because I believe most African countries, we are just starting up as entrepreneurs. So yes, into some extent, in terms of packaging and other things, yes, we need the same level. But as far as the things that we need as Africans, I believe we should have our own different skills.
Fantastic. So I'm of the view, with those of you who shared earlier, context matters, right? That's the phrase. At least I would like you to take away, hold this one and just, think about it. You don't necessarily have to agree with me, but I believe strongly that context matters, right? And so I would go with the Samuels and the others who had said the same thing. So we will not discount Alhaji, for example, that skill set. Who did I start with? I started with Grace, right? We will not discount the fact that skill sets are skill sets, right? But in terms of their implementation, context matters. Okay, so let me take, Alhaji, you mentioned something like innovation. What does innovation look like here in Africa, right? So take, for example, the hawkers on the streets. I don't know how it looks like in all of the countries. I've been to a number of countries represented here. But when I take Ghana, Nigeria in particular, all these hawkers are essentially, it's like they've brought the shop to the streets, essentially, right? So if you're on a long stretch that has lots of traffic, you can essentially sit in your car and do all your shopping at once. Is that innovative, or must it be? And is that because we're spending so much time in traffic that it gives you the opportunity to be in traffic and shop at the same time? Okay, now that's just a one-off. Now, if you are talking about something like resourcefulness, and we'll come to that in just a minute, right? Okay, so so I think that, and I think Samuel made the points to say that there are certain things, there are certain skills, they will forever remain good skills, but whether or not they're operative or effectively operative within a context, may have its questions. It might be questionable. And that's the kind of thing. So I suppose what I'm trying to say at the end of the day is that let us not copy blindly. You know, and again, we come back to, if we don't have our own narrative, then somebody's narrative becomes the narrative. What is innovation, for example? Is it because somebody has defined it as it has to be something new, for example, right? So if somebody brings market to the street, then it's not innovative enough. What is innovation within the context in which we operate, okay? And these, I hope, are conversations that you will be having, or you know, outside of this space. It's a very important conversation. Okay, so I have said that some additional skills that entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs, should have. I'm not putting the words there, but if I said they're introducing the 3 R's, so skills starting with R, right? Which ones would you pick? Any three additional, like, you know, and when I say additional, I mean, so for example, what was I trying to, let me try and give you blah, 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 blah. So even when you talk about something like risk taking, right? In terms of, so in terms of, so those of you who are in finance, right? If you look at our exchange rates in Africa, they are so high compared to what, well, until very recently, in some of the Western countries, you could get an exchange rate for 1%, 2%. And so anything under 5% was very, anything above 5%, people now began to lift their eyebrows on that one. Now it's changed slightly. But before that, yes, 2%, 3%. And we were still at the time hovering around 30%, 25, 35, and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of risk taking, right? If you're doing business with somebody who is also starting the same business in the West, this person has an interest rate below 5. I have an interest rate not below 30, even if I have an interest rate at 20. How are the two of us going to do that same business that same way? And how am I going to make money? How am I going to profit if my competitor's business is you know, has 5% or 5% below 5% interest rate? Do we need the same skill set, or do I need something additional to be able to, because we're, let's say, let's just say that our market base was the same. We've got the same number of customers, 1,000. He's got 1,000, I've got 1,000. He's in the West, I'm here. And he has an interest rate of 5%. I have an interest rate of 20%. Do I need something additional, you know, as an entrepreneur, or do we all use the same skill set that we have? Okay. And my belief is that we need something additional. We need more skills to do things very differently to be able to compete with that person.
Sure.
Even just on this one level, and I'm talking about just this one level of risk taking when it comes to finance. So back to my question, if we were introducing R's that you would, you know, what would be your first R as an entrepreneurial skill? You would say the entrepreneur must be 3 things starting, all starting with R. What would you say?
The entrepreneur should be someone that maybe have friends that refers, that they refer someone to them, or have relationships.
What is the skill? What is a skill? We're talking about skills. So what is the skill that you can do starting with an R? Samuel, your hand is still up. Do you want to start? Or is it an old hand? Okay, success. While we're waiting for Samuel. Success, go for it.
Okay. Risk taking for me should be number one.
Okay, so risk taking. So we've discussed that. We've discussed a lot of that, and I've put it in the finances. Alhaji.
Yeah, for me, resilience.
Resilience, fantastic, which is on my list, right? Now, why would you say so resilient, right? So if I take something like if you're in business, right, with someone in the West, why should, and remember that we're saying that all skills apply everywhere, right? But why should I be more or additionally resilient than John, and it's because there's somebody John here. What name shall I use? I haven't seen Kenneth. Who? Obama. Yes. Sorry? Is anybody? Okay. Why should I be more? Why should I have more resilience than this person?
From my own understanding, like you said, before now, I had the idea that all skills are the same and they are to be implemented the same way. But after listening to your explanation, especially when you gave that example of taking loans from, let's say, the bank in terms of interest, now I have come to realize that, oh, yes, the skills are the same, but implementation must be different. So in this case, why you should be resilient, I mean, it's because,
sorry,
first of all,
hold on for me 1 second. David, are you able to mute the noise in the background? David, if you can mute the noise in the background, I'll be grateful. I'm struggling to hear Alaji as well. Thank you. Yes, so go on. But let's keep it short because we don't have too much time. So keep it short, Alaji.
Yeah, like you said, like I was saying, I'm sorry for the interruption. Like I was saying, I have to be resilient because, like you said, the environment is not the same. What is good for John might not be good for me here. So I have to put on more effort and be resilient. I think that's my explanation.
Fantastic. Okay. Samuel, are you back on or should I move to Success and Bello? Samuel, are you back on?
I'm back on, but it would be great to get the question again.
Okay, let me go to Success and then try and follow it. Success, did you lower your hand? Okay, Bello, you are up. Bello, you go for it.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, one should have the skills of resilience because everything you are doing is about business and there is always a portion for loss. So if you don't have the resilience skills, it's going to be very difficult for you to pull back into shape.
So Bello, we're not necessarily talking about the skill. I'm talking about that resilience. And I'm saying, why should I, as an African leader, have it more than my Western counterpart? That's the question. Samuel, I hope
yes.
Okay, so try and tackle it just straight away so that we can move on.
We need it more because otherwise we are still on the developing stage.
Okay.
The Western countries are already developed, to say. But as a development stage, we need the resilient skills for us to keep moving.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, was that Bello? No, that was Bello answering the question. So let me go to Grace, and then I come to Yapo. Grace, did you want to say something?
Yes, so still on resilience, why I think an African entrepreneur should have it a little more than his counterparts from the West. I think it's even because of the challenges we face here as a continent, the unfavorable challenges that basically every entrepreneur faces here on the African continent. So if you're not a little more resilient than the average entrepreneur, you would give up even before your business takes off.
So Grace, let me give you an example. So in terms of registration, or company registration, right? Your counterpart might just sit in, in his garage somewhere or in his car or something and be able to register in no time.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know how long it takes anybody to be able to register, especially in places like West Africa, for a business?
Yes.
And the things they would ask of you to be able to bring, So again, just to buttress what you're saying, if you're not resilient enough, right, to be able to say that I will wait or that, I will follow the process. By the time you look over your shoulder, your Western counterpart is already selling to like 500 out of 1,000 people.
Exactly.
And you haven't lifted off the ground just yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Yapo, go for it.
So that's what I was going to say. Like in Africa, there's so many challenges and roadblocks, like the government with like taxes and all this stuff. You have roadblocks. Wow, like when you're an entrepreneur in your country, you have more taxes than somebody that comes from abroad to invest in your country. You have challenges from your peers, like your family is gonna be like, no, your idea is wrong. You should work for somebody, for the government. You have your friends that will not buy your stuff. They want discounts on your products.
So Yapo, I will come back to you in just a second. You hold on for me. I will at one point, I'll come back to exactly what you said. Samuel, I'll give you the last word on this one and then we move to the second and third R. Samuel.
Yeah. Can you confirm you can hear me?
I can hear you.
So I think in Africa, it's much tougher than our colleagues out there. Also mostly because like whatever market you are trying to make an entry into. You are competing with products which are already on the Western market, like are from the West, and there's already a taste for Western products in this part of the world, and so you are competing against companies that have been there for years, and so to break through is really tough.
Okay.
So it's like.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it short so that everybody can have a say, right? So Bello, did you already have your say? I see your hand is still up. I think you had the opportunity already, right? Okay, so let's now move to the second R. What would the second R be? So we've got resilience. Please write it down. We've got resilience. What else have we got?
Actually, if I may, I wanted to answer that. If I may.
Sure, go for it. But
like risk-taking, I feel like Africa needs to be a risk-taker because
more of a risk-taker. Okay.
Yeah, more risk-takers.
We can add that. It doesn't have to be only 3. We can add that as well.
Okay.
What else is there? So we've got 2 now. Those of you who are writing, we've got the risk-taker, and then risk-taking. You have to have additional risk-taking skills, and you have to have additional resilience skills. What else? What else? How about resourceful? John, you had your hand up.
Yes, please. I was about talking about relationship skills. So, for instance, I just like to give the example between the interest rates on loans. So those in the West seem to be having 5%. You in Africa is having like 20%. What will make you still thrive in the market is your ability to build relationships. So in that case, you are rather selling based on relationship and then the value of the product, and not just only the atmosphere available.
All right. So back to my mind, what about resourcefulness, right? In the sense that you have to be extra, like how should I say? Let's take an example. Your Western counterpart, right? They're doing the same business as you, okay? They don't have to think about the power supply, constant power supply, constant water supply, constant this, constant that, right? These are resources that you all need. Constant raw material supply. They don't have to think about a lot of these things. You, on the other hand, have to think about those kinds of things, right? And I give you, this is a personal example. I am here situated at the Yali RLC, right? And the reason I prefer to be here to do my facilitation and training is that I cannot guarantee that the power in my house will keep running, okay? Yes, I do have a generator, but the fact that the generator is going to go off and then you're going to, even if it's an automatic generator, God forbid that there wasn't enough fuel, that something has happened, blah, blah, blah. Now that's something that I cannot guarantee. If I were at home and this was like, a live session that I was teaching on to thousands of people, I can't guarantee that I would be able to finish this thing without. However, if I had a counterpart, in the West, that would not be the thing they're thinking about. Electricity, constant electricity supply would not even be top of their mind. Okay, and then the same thing as internet. When I'm at home and I'm facilitating at home, I have to make sure that I have broadband, and then I have a dongle, and I have my mobile data to be able to transfer just in case. I mean, these are thoughts that by the time you think about it, it's even worn you down. Okay, but here, so we have to be more resilient, more resourceful, more risk-taking, more relational, more reliable, in all of the things you do. So you can go on, you can look for some of the top skills that you think that an African leader must have. Okay, so I hope that this helps so far. Okay, any questions so far? Any very quick questions or contributions? Very quickly, like 1 minute, 2 minutes kind of thing. What have you learned so far? Anything that is intriguing in your mind so far before we move on to something else?
I do have a question. I mean, is there actually three things that we have to know, like as you said, you introduced, or is it coming next, or?
No, so we've mentioned some of them. The key ones for me were resourceful, that it has to be additionally resourceful, has to be additionally resilient. I think the first one was resilient. And then the third one would be reliable. So things like, if I was talking about like raw materials, which is one of the biggest challenges that we have. You order cane chairs from somebody. I want 100 pieces. They give you good bamboo for 2 consecutive times. And then third, then you now can't find, you know. Sometimes I go to restaurants and, you know, they're serving canned mushrooms. And I'm wondering, why don't you, how is it even possible that you're serving canned mushrooms? And they will tell you, yes, it's about raw material supply. We don't have that. So in terms of, again, there's some of the things I've even said in terms of, and even for us, if you are the one serving, if you are the one who is providing the services, how reliable are you? You know, how reliable we have to be, because we rely on almost everything is, you know, well, not almost, a lot of things are imported. So these 3 R's, you can, I mean, and I love that we've added some to it, and we've added relational and risk taking to it. So you can add that. So it can be 5, it can be 10. And that's how I was saying, add your own. I intentionally didn't put them up. I could have, and if I did, then you wouldn't focus on the risk taking and the relational. So I intentionally didn't put them up. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Grace, is your hand up?
Yes, I just want to say something.
Go for it.
It is.
No, Grace, hold on a second. Somebody was saying something. Go for it.
Yes, actually, it's about being resourceful. You know, as an entrepreneur, you might be a risk taker because that is coming from you personally, directly. Mm-hmm. And you might be resilient because that has to do with your own self. But when it comes to being resourceful, there are some other factors that may determine that, like you're talking about electricity. Mm-hmm. I may want to be resourceful in that area, but this is something that I do not control. So how do I become resourceful in that instance?
Which is what that's the whole point of having that extra, right? Bakari, that's the whole point I was trying already to make. So to be resourceful, I mean, you need the thing to work. So you're going to have to buy a generator. Your Western counterparts can't conceptualize the thought of a generator. What does that mean? What does that even look like? Why do I? So you're going to now be thinking about generator. You're thinking of solar panels, right? You're thinking of, okay, should all of these things fail? Now, should I come to Yali RLC to stay there? Should I go to a hotel? Should I do this? That's the kind of conversation that we're having, right? So it's outside of you, but you have to create it. You can't just say because it's outside of me, I cannot create it. So if it's about water and you're not getting water through your taps, then you're going to now think of borehole water. If you're not getting pipe-borne water, you're thinking of borehole water, you're thinking of river water, you're thinking of all sorts that your Western counterpart would not think about. So honestly, when it comes to entrepreneurial skills, if we were looking for the real entrepreneurs, I think you can find that in Africa, right? Those ones, I would say they have it much easier, but then it doesn't exonerate us from anything. We still have to be the entrepreneurs. We still have to produce. So you can't say because of my challenges, I'm not going to produce. Then the question is, in spite of my challenges, how am I still going to compete with my Western counterpart? That is makes sense. In spite of my, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, Grace, you have the last word and then we're moving on.
Yes, I think you asked us to share what we've learned from the sessions. Yeah, and now that I think about it, in relation to the very first question you asked before we started this session that's just ended, as to whether, irrespective of your location, as an entrepreneur, should you possess the same skills? I think after this session, I have come to the realization that as an African entrepreneur, to be specific, you need the extra of every skill that your counterpart in the Western world has, because you are faced with so many mountains to climb and they may not have that.
Yeah. So, I mean, Daum is give yourself a pat on the back if you're doing something, because I can assure you that your Western counterparts would have given up if they were faced with half of the challenges that you were faced with. However, you still have to go on, right? So, it's really neither here nor there. So, we have to find ways of being more, being extra, right? It's almost like the African child who is going to school, walking a mile away, going barefooted, doesn't have the books, blah, blah, blah. Those challenges, until we fix them ourselves, they're all going to be with us. But then the child has to be educated one way or the other, right? And so as you are coming up as young African leaders, then these are issues that you should be concerned about, and these are issues that you should be finding. So remember what we said about the entrepreneur, somebody who identifies problems and then brings solutions to the problem, is able to take the risk, is able to make money out of it, is able to then employ people to. So what are you doing to fix some of these challenges that we're having so that we can't become like them? When we're thinking of business, we don't have to think of all of these other odds, okay? All right, so we're moving on to a softer skill. So soft skills, again, let me go back and say that as an entrepreneur, and for those of you who are in business, as I've said before, if you're going into business, you would typically go into it with the knowledge, your certificate, you know, which is about your technical know-how, technical expertise, and a bit of your tacit, not a bit, all of the tacit knowledge that you have, which is brilliant, right? But that only pertains to you. So my certificate, for example, say a PhD holder, it just has my name on it. It's just peculiar to me, right? And so I can sit in my room and, you know, hold up a banner and say, this is who I am. If I were working on my own from beginning to end, that's fine. But the moment that I begin to work with people and I begin to work in spaces and I begin to work in industries and in sectors and all of that, then my personality traits comes into play. Okay, so who am I when I'm working with Joy and Success and Bakari and Alaji and all of those things come into play, right? That impacts my certificate, that impacts the knowledge that I have, whether I'm a plumber or a mason or a dressmaker and all of those things. I must have additional soft skills to implement my entrepreneurial skills, right? There's enough research to show now that actually all you need is about 15%, okay, let me rephrase, the tacit knowledge and the technical know-how accounts for only about 15% of the work that you do. The rest of it, the 85% of it is your soft skills that you bring to play. So your tacit knowledge, the 15% will help you to do your work well. The 85% helps you to do your work better. And one of the many, there are plethora of soft skills. One of the many soft skills that there are is critical thinking, right? So critical thinking, how have you used it? I mean, right now you can see the concept online. It requires you to think deeper and more complex, which is what we're talking about, right? We already mentioned that if you can't get regular supply of electricity and yet the work has to be done, right? How it's a complex issue, and we're looking at the depth at which you are able, okay, to think about that. So it encourages you to be objective and to be very analytical in your thinking, to be able to evaluate an issue and provide more information to make a better informed judgment about a situation. So when you say somebody is a critical thinker, essentially what we are describing is that somebody looks at an issue or a problem or a challenge and then begins to look at it from an objective as opposed to a subjective. Subjective is when you're not bringing in all the emotions, blah, blah, blah. You want to be able to avoid that. Look at it from an objective point of view, right? Evaluate it break it down into how many different angles can I look at this? How many different ways can I see this issue, right? And then based on all that, so again, there was somebody said something about research. You know, I get inside information and also outside information, put it all together to be able to make judgments, okay? Then critical thinking, as I said, it's a higher order of thinking. It's just you go past your normal way of thinking, but it encourages you to question and reflect your own knowledge. So I'm hoping that that's some of what we've done today, right? And Grace, if I remember correctly, that shift that you have been able to make from, okay, I thought that skills were applicable across board, right? But now I see how actually I need to put my context into position, right? I need to think of how my context impacts all of those skills. Now you're beginning to think from a higher order or a higher point of view, right? So you reflect on your knowledge and how you arrived at the opinion. So Grace, I'm going to ask you at some point how you arrived at the opinions that you have and how you make the decisions that you do. So I've explained for you, for example, that I made my decision to be here based on looking at all the different angles. And I'm saying, okay, after looking at all the different angles, to be honest, Benonia, your best bet is to be here, right? So that you do not have, right? And again, then I'm taking you back to what we were discussing from the beginning in terms of the narrative that we create or the narrative that we consume, the information, right, that we consume. Where do we get that information from? So you see on the second slide, it says, evaluate available information. Where's the source of my information? Which would even help me to think critically. Where's the source of my information? Okay, so now look at some of the critical thinking skills that we already have here, right? Who can I get? Success, let me come to you. Can you read anything from the far right?
From the far right.
Yes.
Is it the one so for my right is critical? Why is critical thinking important?
The one with the bulb.
The one with the bulb, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So let's go clockwise.
Okay, let's go. Okay, clockwise. All right. Helps to improve decision making.
Mm-hmm.
It enhances problem solving ability.
Mm-hmm.
Refine your research skills. Polishes your creativity, stimulates curiosity.
Stimulates curiosity. Okay. So let's discuss any of this within the African context, your own. I mean, just the kind of, if we follow the trajectory that we have been on, what would be your thoughts? Any of them, any of the five? What are you thinking with regards to yourself, with regards to the African context? What with regards to an African leader? What would be your thoughts? Anybody? Anybody? Any thoughts? If critical thinking helps you improve decision making, right? So, okay, okay, go for it.
Yeah, I was going, yeah. I mean, definitely. Yeah, if you use your critical thinking, it helps you analyze a decision from different aspects. And obviously, if you're a good critical thinker, obviously, yeah, it should improve your decision making, like because you adapt your decision on the environment, on many aspects that surrounds the situation in which you find yourself, or based on where you want to go. Yeah.
So yeah, but let me ask you, how much of that are we using? Would you say we're using here?
Where?
We're using here being Africa.
In Africa. Oh,
And before you answer that question, do not forget that you're one of us, right? Before you lambast us, do not forget.
Yeah.
Do not forget. And every time any of you are going to answer any question or you're going to say anything Africa, do not forget that you are right smack in the middle of it. So okay, go for it. I'm listening.
I don't. If I want to, well, I mean, maybe not so much. To a certain extent.
That means, yeah, but that means you're not using it so much, then, right?
Well, I do. I mean, well, I'm thinking of generally in terms of like.
But generally, you are part of generally. You and I are part of generally.
Well, let's say we do use it on the general, but we can improve on it. Let's say we can improve on it because like I'm basing my thinking off of, let's say if I take the leadership, I mean government wise, some decision that is being taken. Sometimes I sit and I'm like, why would such decision? How did they think about it and took this decision? Like, because obviously it's not positive for most of us and stuff like that. So that's how I'm basing my my thinking right now, but yeah.
But therefore, you know that the government is only a microcosm of the rest of us. I mean, and let's not forget that we were the same people who voted them in, right? So
Wow.
okay, so let's leave the politics aside for now. Bakari, please go for it.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. But for me, I think I will rate us as people or as a people who are just making 40% of their critical thinking skills. And this is because there is something that I think Africans really, need to improve on, and that is philosophy and, psychology. And that is because a lot of the African would just do things because it is said to them like that. And most of those things are a lot of the time just myth or just belief. But we don't question, because even in the African culture, if a child is born that inquisitive who asks a lot of questions, they will be like, you don't ask this, you don't say this, you don't say that. And that really kills our critical thinking skills.
Bakari, I'm listening to you and I'm saying, is he an African or is he not? Is he part of me or is he not part of me? And again, back to what I was saying, that at the end of the day, I mean, you make a good point, but my question to you would be, to what extent are you part of our problem? But anyway, that we will discuss later. Gabriel, I see your hand up.
Yes, in my view, I think we have a lot of critical thinkers among us as Africans. However, one of our key problems is the implication. We come out with the nice ideas when you look at resolutions that have been passing by African unions, passing by ECOWAS. You see that these are nice ideas. But when it comes to the implementation, I think it's a systematic problem that hinders some of our critical thinking in this continent. Okay. That's my view.
All right. I don't see any other hand up. So let's do an exercise, right? Okay, let's do an exercise. If you look on your, can anybody tell me whether they've received a document from me on WhatsApp? Have I shared it? I think it has delivered. I don't know.
Yes, the message is on the WhatsApp group already.
It's on the WhatsApp platform. Fantastic. If you can open it, I think it has up to 15 questions. And this one, we're now moving from critical thinking to time management, which, as I said from the very beginning, is one of the things, one of the soft skills that every entrepreneur should have. So again, let me reiterate, if you were not here, I have a policy, and it's not a policy. Let me find it on this slide. No, it's not on this. It was here just a minute. Oh, fantastic. This is where I want to be. Okay. Look at this for me for a moment. And you tell me what you understand by it. If you are not 15 minutes early, you are 15 minutes late. This is a quote. This is one of my favorite quotes, all-time quote. What do you think it means? How do you understand this? If you are not 15 minutes early, you are 15 minutes late. Anybody, quick, before we go on to the psychometric.
I'll try myself at it. I don't know. I believe it means that you have to be ready, because like if you're 15 minutes late, you're ready for whatever. If you're just on the dot, stuff might happen, and yeah, you might not be ready for whatever.
Okay. That's a good. Anybody else before we move on? Thank you very much. That was helpful. Anybody else?
I would like to also share my idea. I think this quote is definitely telling us you have to be ahead of anything that you are doing before it's exact time. So if you are not ahead of it, and even if you reach at the same time, you are still late. That's mine.
I can't see now if I have any. Is there any hand up? If there's no hand up, I'll just go on to it.
Yes,
Okay, go for it.
So, can I go?
Yes, please go. Was that Grace?
Okay.
Grace,
yes.
Is this Grace? Okay, Grace, go for it. Yes.
Yes, so that's my understanding of the quote. It means that if you are not 15 minutes early and you're just right on time, and probably something comes up, there's really no room to make amendments. So it defeats the purpose for whatever you were preparing for. But if you are at least 15 minutes early, then if something should even come up, you have ample time to rectify that before the actual thing starts.
Hello, you have the last word on this, and then we're going on.
Yeah, sorry, I understand it to be, it talks about the consequences of effect that happens the moment you are late. More related to a medical department that normally says, assuming you are 5 minutes earlier, we'll have done something about it.
Okay. So do you know that, I mean, typically you picture yourself, you go into a meeting, you go into a lecture, you go into something, right? The human body has to situate itself. It's like when you move from darkness into light or light into darkness, your eyes, your everything is trying to situate itself, right? So when you move into a meeting, you've got your bags, especially for the women, got your bag, got this, you've got to pull up a chair, you've got to do that. The meeting is supposed to start, our session is supposed to start at 2, right? By 1:45, you should be situated. You should be there now, checking to see everything works, making sure you are comfortable, you've got your water already, everything. And then now you begin to think about the meeting that is about to happen. You take a good 5 minutes to situate yourself within. So essentially, it takes you 15 minutes to be ready for the 2 o'clock. So if you come in at 2, you still need extra 15 minutes to be situated for that 2 o'clock that the meeting should have started. It takes another 15 minutes. Do you get it? So it means like you've used 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes of that 2 o'clock to be able to situate yourself. So can we agree here? Have you any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? Can we agree here that our motto would be, we will be 15 minutes early for the 2 p.m.?
Exactly.
Fantastic. So I'm assuming that voice speaks for everybody. Okay. So
yeah, it goes like
so go for it. Go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry. It goes like in an examination, situation.
Exactly.
If you're 15 minutes late, you will be in the exam hall.
Absolutely.
But actually, you take you another 15 minutes before your rest to be answered, to be able to answer the question.
Absolutely. Right. And so shall we plan that as African leaders? And you see, as much as we talk about, these are the sort of things that when we talk about the Westing, they've got that, right? They will be early enough for the meeting. And these are the people that we're competing with, right? Again, yes, we will talk about the situation of how, what's it called? What do you call it? There was traffic. There's always traffic for us, there's always drama, for us. And the question is, how can we reduce that drama? So when the session has started at 2 o'clock and you come in at 2:15 and you say, I'm trying to get in and I can't get in, that you're already 30 minutes late. If you come in 15 minutes, if you come at 2, you're 15 minutes late. If you come at 2:15, you are actually 30 minutes late. If you come at 2:30, you're 45 minutes late. You need to think about that, right? I would like you to think about that. Okay, so now let's go to the second.
Let's ask a question regarding that. Okay, it's just for maybe for fun or whatever, but yeah, like several times we've been, if I want to take the case of this, or even in Africa in general, several times you're trying to get early and it doesn't start on time, and you're thinking maybe if I was doing something else and stuff, and then maybe I get there, I could have done something else before. Like the case is,
so for that 10 of us going to the meeting, right? We're all thinking the same way. Who's ever going to get there early? We're all thinking it will start late. It will start late. It will start. So I'm going to be 15 minutes late. I'm going to be 20 minutes late. Because all 10 of us are thinking. If all 10 of us reorient our minds and say we're starting at, if we're not 15 minutes late, we're 15 minutes early. If we're not 15 minutes early, we're 15 minutes late. And I get there, we all get there for 1:45. What will prevent us from starting the meeting at 2?
True.
Fantastic. Okay, psychometric. Let's go to psychometric. So pull up what I've sent to you on WhatsApp, right? If you pull it up, 15 questions. We're going to now measure, and I'll tell you psychometrics. I'll tell you a bit about psychometrics in just a minute. But we're going to measure. Psychometrics are used to, they're like diagnostic tools, right? If you take your car to a diagnostic service, it tells you exactly, they put it on the machine, tells you exactly what is wrong with your car, right? When you do other types of, you use other types of measurements, they can be very subjective. So for example, I think it was Success who was saying from the beginning that, oh, she didn't know that there were different types of leadership. She thought it was just democratic and autocratic and not perhaps laissez-faire and all of the others that she found transformational and so on and so forth. Even those ones, if I said to you, okay, let's say there are 4 types of leadership, right? Either you are democratic, you're autocratic, you're laissez-faire, or you're transformational. I can almost tell choose the one that you think you are, right? I can almost tell you that lots of people would go for democratic and transformational. Nobody wants autocratic and nobody wants laissez-faire, right? Because we like to feel good. So these things are subject. How do I measure it? If Success chose, if she said she's autocratic, how will I measure it? I don't have the measure for it. I have a subjective measure. On the other hand, psychometrics are very objective. They're precise tools, they're accurate, they're reliable. They would give you, at the end of the day, your strengths and your weaknesses the scores gives you. Okay, so let's take 10 minutes max, okay, to do this exercise. Look at the exercise and answer the questions. It's very self-explanatory. So number 1 says, I schedule time for planning. Okay, never, really, occasionally, just tick that. Tick those boxes for me. Number 2 says, I focus on most urgent tasks. Never, rarely, blah, blah, blah. Choose that. And then once you finish, those of you who would finish, okay, so let's do that. 15 questions. 15 questions. I'm giving you 5 minutes, timing you now, starting now. 15 questions starting now. Just put it on a piece of paper. You don't need to, just put it on a piece of paper, but know what you are answering. So yeah, 3:27. That will be the time that we will stop this. The thing with psychometrics, don't overthink it. The first answer that comes to your mind is oftentimes the right answer. Do not overthink it. Do not try and manipulate it as well.
Yes.
Okay, you've done this course.
Yes.
Anybody else? Anybody needs a minute or two? Anybody needs a minute or two? Okay, so let's talk about it. What did you find? What did you find? Joe, let me start with Grace. Let me start. You're the one I can see. Grace, let me start with you. Grace, what did you find?
So for section A, I scored 22.
So let's come to the full scores. Are you between 6 and 20, 21 and 36, 37 and 66?
Okay, so I'm between 37 and 66. I had a score of 35.
Your score was 35.
Yeah.
So if your score was 35, then you were between 21.
It's 21 to 36.
21 to 36, sorry, yeah.
Okay. All right, fine. Who else is there? Well, we'll just have a conversation about it. Who else? Success, I see your hand. Yapo, I see your hand. The same people whose hands I see all the time. There are about 30-something of you. Some of you have not spoken at all. Success, go for it.
Okay, so I had a score of 41, so I'm within the range.
So you are in
of
the last range.
Yeah, the last range.
Okay, I'll come to you in a bit. Yapo, what was your?
I have a 38.
38. So you're in the last range. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the last range.
Who else is there?
Yeah, I'm also here.
Yes, go for it.
I had a score of 43.
Ramatu, is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, that's you. All right. So let's keep the scores. You can even write it. Grace.
Yes.
Are you surprised at your scores?
Not really. I think it's actually gives a reflection of my current state. Yes, when it
your
comes
current state. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So my question would be, Grace, like what two things what would you like to do with this score? Would you like a higher score? Would you like to maintain it? Do you think it's temporary? What are your thoughts?
I think for now, I would say I'm not doing too bad because in this current stage of my life, I'm actually juggling so many things. So to be within the score range, it tells me
with your scores.
I'm not doing too bad. Yeah.
Who is happy or unhappy? So I suppose this is like it's just a brief introduction to what psychometrics are, right? I'm sure a lot of you have used it. Let me tell you the thing about psychometrics. I keep saying psychometrics don't lie, right? This is a question of 15. It's actually perhaps only 4 questions asked in 15 different ways. Are you with me? It's the same because if you look at number 1, I schedule time for planning. You might find it's the same one that has been put in number 3. I break complex tasks into small steps, which is to say I can, right?
Yeah.
Are you with me?
Yes.
And so we're asking the same questions in so many different ways. If we had asked it in that subjective manner of, do you think you are democratic or autocratic? You just choose one and then you give me so many words to go with it and blah, blah, blah. But with this one, it's that same question that I have gone round and round and asked you in about 4 or 5 different ways and trying to, however you answer it, would eventually, this would be a true reflection or a truer, let me put it that way, a truer reflection of who you are. So depending on the scores that you got, you now sit down and say, and typically I chose this one because the comments are very, very simple. I could give you one that has more comments that you have to work. If we had work time, then we would have done that and done it in groups. But I think this is a teaser or a starter enough, for you to start thinking of. So for example, Grace can make that, she's evaluating her situation to say, because there's so much going on, I am actually doing well with my time. Some of you can evaluate that situation, the same score that she got, and you say, that's not where I wanted to be, right? And that's not where I should be. And so you now begin to ask yourself, how can I do it better? Which areas? So now this is your takeaway. Which areas are, but you see, Grace, there's always room for improvement in spite of all that was going on, right? Okay. So which areas can you look at and say that I would like to improve in this? And look, and by which areas, I'm asking more about the questions that you can find there, right? Some of it is it to break complex tasks into little steps, or is it to do less of taking work home, or to do more? Some people, if you're somebody who's a morning person, right, then you can wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and do a bit of your work before you go to actual work, right? And it will help you with your time management. So do I need to take more work home or less work home? For some people, you don't need to take work home. So look at all of these different areas. Do I need to prioritize my to-do list, right? May have a long to-do list of 10, right? But you sit and you prioritize and you look at which ones work for you, okay? And so look at the areas. I would think somebody's got a 45. Wow, that's a lot. That's you're smart. I mean, I don't know how you're managing. I don't know what I would love to hear what you're doing and how you came by with that 37.
So I have a question, please.
Yes, go for it.
So I think as I was filling it, I realized that, so for instance, I have a daily to-do list, but the problem is once I'm done with my to-do list, yes, then, I mean, I've checked everything off the to-do list. then I tend to use the remaining time for probably watching a movie or something. So I wanted to ask, can I add on to my to-do list once I've exhausted what I intended to do before the day began?
But the question would be, if you've ticked off everything from your to-do list,
yeah,
yet you still have there certain work undone.
Yes. So maybe let me give a more realistic example.
Don't worry, I'm with you. So what were you hoping to, how were you hoping to accomplish those remaining works? What those tasks? How were you?
So
was it the same day, or you were hoping to accomplish it tomorrow?
Yes, accomplish it the next day. But so this week I'm trying to close off certain applications I'm doing, but it's quite a lot. So I decided to break it down into daily plans or goals or whatever. So for instance, today I did 2 out of the numerous applications I have to submit. Then I plan to do maybe another 2 tomorrow till I'm done with those applications. So my question is, once I'm done with the 2 I intended to do today.
Wait, Grace. So that, let's say you had a total of 10.
Right.
To be submitted, all of which you should have done, say 31st of March.
Yes.
Right? And you've broken them up into 2 a day.
Yeah.
And you can still finish it by the 31st.
Yeah.
The way that you've broken them up, you can still finish them by the 31st, right?
Yes.
And so you finish early, the first 2. Are you with me? Am I right?
Yes.
And then maybe you have understated your to-do list. You've given yourself less work than you should.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Then if you finish by, let's say 12 or 2, then it means that what you should have, then you have from, let's say from 2 to 6. Then you should put another one in. You should have, in terms of the time. So the question would be, how long does it take to fill one application?
Okay.
And based on the length of that time, then you multiply it or divide it by the number of days that you have.
Okay.
So maybe then you are underlisting the things that you ought to be doing in a day, and that's something that you need to look at. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
No worries. David, are you there? Do I have the groups? Can you see whether you've been put in groups? Can you see that? I can't see your preliminary session. David. No. Okay. I already asked him to put them to do groups for me, so I'm just checking if they're ready. Okay. In the meantime, while I'm looking for Mr. IT, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, fantastic. We're going to do another exercise. And in this exercise, you're supposed to be in groups. That's what I was just checking to see if I had the groups. So in each group, what I'm asking you to do, sorry, there's something on my screen that doesn't want to go away. Grace, can you read for me, please, what is on my screen?
All right, so it says entrepreneurial skills game, task. Identify and name 10 body parts.
Okay.
2, assign a specific entrepreneurial skill appropriate to each part you have identified.
Because we don't have time, we will reduce it to 5 body parts, right? Okay. So let me give you an example. So then somebody identifies the head, and the entrepreneurial skills for it will be something like an entrepreneur must be intelligent. Do you see how the head goes with intelligence?
Yes.
Right? So you decide which body part. So you identify the heart, and then I already said that 5. I said 5, yeah. Per room, yeah. He only has 3, that's fine. So that we don't. Can you see, Grace, can you see, or anybody, can you see the 3 groups that have been created? Can you see your names? Can you find your groups?
No.
Not yet. No.
Yeah.
We cannot.
Unless I assign them before they can see on their screen.
Yes, that's what I was saying from the beginning. If you don't mind assigning them, that would be great. In the meantime, just be thinking about this, right? So that when you come into your groups, sorry? When you come in, okay, thank you. When you come into the groups, it's easier, okay? So look at it and yes, so 5 body parts, what would you say? I want this exercise is supposed to give you a more graphic understanding of, you know, something you won't forget. And this might be something that we can put up as cohort, your C42, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we can put up as a C42 thing, right? And every group has it, and we will be referring to it throughout all of your sessions here. So 5 minutes I have, let me see what I can do with that. Any takeaways? What would be the great takeaway for you? Nana, since you are on, let me start with you. What would be your great takeaway?
Well, I did learn a lot, especially when we were being divided into rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sometimes I realize what you have in mind, if someone also has it in mind.
Okay.
So you don't have all the knowledge in this world. I realize, yeah, you might be saying this and that's exactly what someone has in mind. So yes, I think it has been resourceful. I've learned a lot. I've been quiet for a while, but I was just kind of observing and everything. So yes, very resourceful. Thank you very much as well.
That's okay. Anybody else? What would be your great takeaway?
Can I speak? Hello.
Sorry, go. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much, Doc. First of all, when we are splitted into groups, you know, it makes me believe that when we come together, give this on, you know, ideas we are coming from all angles, and in fact, we disagree in order for us to agree, because some ideas came up and some people said, oh, I don't want us to use it this way. I want us to use it this way, because if we use it this way, it will happen like this. So it means when we come together for the group of something, definitely will succeed. I think togetherness is what I am.
Okay, fantastic. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah, for me, I think the exercise we just finished also like gave us the opportunity to really have a vision. Like, you know, as we're mentioning, okay, ants for partnership, you know, in my mind, I was having a picture of, okay, so I can dip in my 2 ends together, and then I can use it to do something, or hold ends with somebody else to achieve something. So I think the fact that the exercise made us visionary as we're describing the body parts, and then we can vision it in our mind.
Okay. All right. Grace, do I have your hands up?
Well, my takeaway would be the psychometric test we had. It's helped me to know where I am and what to do to move a step ahead. So I think that was really eye-opening for me, because prior to now, I thought I was on top of my game in terms of time management, but I've seen that there's actually room for more.
Fantastic.
And yes. So.
Bello, I see Samuel's hand as well. Bello, go for it. Then Samuel.
Sorry, to me, the exercise make me to realize that there is always a good result in teamwork, and there's always some things to gain from diversity. So in the course of exercise, I see that nobody cares about where are you from. It's just that we want to get the work done.
So before I go on to Samuel, Bello, you mentioned teamwork. I think a couple of people also have. How is it that the conversation around partnerships in Africa is so complex? You know, and I don't have the time to hear, but if we can discuss this on the WhatsApp page, right? If you are talking about, you know, working together and teamwork and blah, 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 why do we have very, very few partnerships when it comes to in the entrepreneurial space. So that's something that if you want to talk about on WhatsApp, that would be great. Samuel.
Yes. So the last exercise about the body parts, the body is very unique, such that every part of the body is really important and plays a specific role. So what it did mean to me was that entrepreneurship is such that a single skill set will not be enough. You need to amass a number of things, skill sets, bring them all together to be the full package.
That's a very important point. That's a very, very important point. Nancy, your hand was up. You've taken it away. Anybody else? And then we'll bring it to a close. But Samuel, I like what you said, you know. Sorry, is somebody going? Go for it. Yeah.
It's for me, my key takeaway was that when you are like trying to solve a particular problem, you know, in a group, like people usually are not afraid. People are not, you know, scared to just hold back. Like, you know, I could see that when someone talk about the eye, someone talk about the hand and also the ear. So someone was also talking about, okay, the nose. So I was saying, okay, but why don't anybody talk about the nose? But someone immediately talk about the nose. So I said, okay, this is really interesting. Like nobody want to just, you know, hold back. Everybody want to give your best. So that was my key takeaway.
Fantastic. So Nanakusi, we can have that, right? If you want to, if other people want to add to it, even though we've just said what we've said, if people want to add to it, that's fine as well. So you decide, then you let me know. At least we can also, yes, it can also be on the chat, and then we can be engaging with it as we go along. Asaba, you have the last word.
From the last exercise, I really learned that working as a group is a little bit easier than working as an individual. That's what I'll take back home.
Okay. All right. If you don't have, if anybody has a particular question they would like to ask, or if not, then we can bring the session to a close. Any questions? Okay. Then in that case, thank you very, very much for your time. I hope that it's been insightful enough for you. It's been a learning process. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. So I look forward to seeing, I think the next session will be me as well. And go have a look at what we're supposed to. I think they shared their schedule with you. So you should know what's for next session. I'm interested in everybody looking at the work that you do, right? So this is where we will discuss now. I'm going to ask you, what do you do? And then we're going to look at the value chain, right? Value proposition and the business model. So have a look at what we're supposed to do and read ahead. That also counts for part of what we were saying from the beginning. I think it was Joy, or was it Success? One of you was saying that, you know, knowing your area, knowing the things within your space, and research. I think Bello, I can't remember, somebody was talking about research. And so you need to be able to know what we'll be discussing next week, Thursday, and prepare ahead so that we can have a more engaging conversation as well. And tell your other friends, I think there were supposed to be 70 something of you in this stream, and yet there are only about 31 of you. So encourage others to also join. All right, on that note, thank you very much. It's been lovely meeting all of you. We can move the conversation onto the WhatsApp. Let's continue to have that conversation there. And take care of yourself. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you too. Have a wonderful weekend.
Happy weekend to us.